So I call to order the FairTV Commission special meeting for Monday, June 22nd, 2023. This is David Kraft, FairTV Commissioner, Chairperson, along with Will Ferguson, Paula Kokoza, Lee Camlett, and Luke Altieri. As far as, we'll get right into it. My apologies for the delay, everybody. On that note, I'll start with Chairman's remarks. I think there's administrative, perhaps oversight. I'm not totally certain, but from the last meeting that you held without me, I don't believe we officialized what was voted on and presented during that meeting, which was namely the cadence of our meetings for 2024, this being the first one. So when I had to cancel last week's meeting, it technically wasn't on the record. And I'm saying all of this because it was explained to me that this still constitutes a special meeting, even though the last meeting wasn't going to be on the record. And I owe the town and the town clerk imminently our names, our titles, and our meeting schedule for this year. Does that make sense to everybody?
That's something that has to be done every year?
Yes, and I haven't been through this, and I see Will and Lee nodding in agreement. It does, and obviously I didn't know that, otherwise I would have sent it in. We'll go around the room and just talk about order of business, but it dawned on me, even, that since it has not been officialized, I wanted to suggest a slight alteration because of the reality of what I now perceive as, a challenge, on my part on Wednesday nights. But I don't want to get into that because I think that that's more of a new business item, even though it's not technically new business, but for the purpose of for tonight's meeting, it is new business. So I'll just say that I wanted to bring that up, that this is considered a special meeting, even though our regular meetings weren't on the calendar. But let's just go around the room and then we can circle back to that when we talk about, new business, et cetera. So I'll just leave off there and then pass the baton to you, Paula.
Yeah, I have nothing to report. So I guess, Will, it's you.
Yeah. Just one piece before approving the minutes from the last meeting. So just I met with Suzanne, who's the applicant to fill the Republican vacancy and to be our final and fifth commissioner. So we'd have a full roster for the first time in Lord knows how long. And I just, again, I don't think we actually have any oversight or, voting capacity. It's not really up to us. I think, any commissioner is appointed by the town bodies, but more of a, meet and greet, figure out, shared values and kind of working schedule. And I think similar to a lot of us, she just didn't really have much exposure to what is happening on the FairTV Commission, like what's the time commitment, those types of things. And the short of it is the outcome of the meeting was very positive. She seems to be like-minded to the rest of us, which is work together, be efficient, use the town's money efficiently and the taxpayer money and try to just accomplish our mission with as little friction as possible. And she did not seem to be bothered by kind of our meeting schedule and the limited out of meeting requirements. So all good things. And I think in the next couple of weeks here, there's the RTM meetings and the Board of Selectmen meetings that will hopefully advance her and approve her, and then we'll have a full squad.
So I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting 2 Mondays ago, and she was approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Oh,
so we're just waiting for RTM.
Great, perfect.
When does she go before the RTM? Isn't there some kind of meeting?
I'm assuming that's next Monday. So this Monday is the all committees meeting, and then next Monday is just the RTM regular meeting. So I'm assuming it's the regular meeting that they do the final approve.
Yeah, I think so.
So if all goes according to plan, she'll be approved next week, provided she's, Suzanne is in attendance and, remains obviously interested in the participation. I mean, that would be a great thing. Will, thanks very much for doing that.
Of course.
Suzanne's name has come to us, I think, a couple times. And obviously there was, there was another candidate over the summer that didn't materialize, but particularly just, in parsing, who's really interested in learning and participating and so on and so forth. Well, after we approve the December 2023 minutes, I actually want to get back to a couple of remarks before we go into Luke's report. So
Yeah, no problem.
why don't you go ahead and, do your thing.
Yeah, I'll just make a motion to approve the minutes from our December meeting dated December 20th, 2023.
I'll second it. I don't know. Were you there, Paul? I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Great. All in favor?
Hi.
Beautiful. Carry unanimously. And then David, I'll pass it back to you for any additional chairman's remarks.
Yeah, just a couple things, and Luke will get into this in more detail. We visited, obviously, I think I've had a chance to tell all of you that we visited the town and met with First Selectman Bill Gerber and the budget director. And, we want to obviously get into our budget tonight so we can hopefully approve that. But namely, that meeting was an exchange of ideas, if you will, or what we proposed and questions they had. And it was a chance to meet the new administration. So kind of going to put that aside, but I just wanted to point out the website updates. Luke, you made those updates such that the town website now says all of our names and our positions and our term lengths.
Yep.
Okay. I took a look at it at the time when you were doing that, and I suggest everybody does that just so you make sure, I don't know, where our website home or digital home is. It's fairly straightforward. Just going back to it myself because I just want to have another peek. Okay. Yeah, so I guess really just something that we have to think about here is that we are getting obviously a request, maybe on average once, twice, 3 times a month for coverage of a meeting. People probably get our email address from the town, but they don't necessarily know how to contact us. And Luke, looking at the what you updated the website with, I think you have to go back in, even though Paula, this doesn't work for you, according to Dave Kelly, the Fairfield IT person, FairTV at fairfieldct.org has to be in the to line and not the CC line. And that's the difference often between us having the email forwarded to us. I mean, literally receiving it and not, even though again, it's not a foolproof system. And I don't quite know why it's not a foolproof system, but it seems to get through to enough of our radars where, at least one, if not two, and in many instances, three of us have seen it. Luke, you're obviously not on that. So what I'm just wondering about, and this isn't even necessarily a motion, is 2 things. When you say to contact Fair TV, it should clarify that the email should be in the to line, not the CC. And Luke, unless you have an objection to it, I suggest that they either put you in the to or the CC line. That shouldn't matter either way.
Yeah.
But just because it's critical that if anyone has access to it and sees it quickly and imminently, it be you, because often we're not asked with 30 days notice. And even though that's a rule of thumb of ours, I just think that in order to ensure, a quicker response, that Luke's email alias be in there as well. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah, so what I actually have on the Fair TV main site, not the commission site, on the bottom, it says,
I see that.
any questions or comments for us, email fairtv@fairfieldct.org. And then I put, underneath it, any coverage must be made within, at least 30 days of the event. So that would be technically the alias that I use. And then that forwards to my personal email. So, I mean, if you want, I could leave it like that, or I could also, underneath contact Fair TV, I could put email Fair TV as well as the Fair TV Commission, or do you want me to just leave it at that? And if I get anything, I'll forward it to you guys.
No, I would put both down because we all have other occupations, literally, and I think it just ensures a cast a wider net. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I was not realizing that the email wasn't the commission one, but I think you should add the commission one. It's one less step for you. It might reach us quicker, hopefully. I mean, or at least at the same time. But just if you're going to do it, say it must be in the 2 line and not the CC.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I could update that after we get off.
But just
And
as
then-
clarification, Will, you didn't receive the agenda this time either, did you? So
No,
it's not
and
just,
that's what I normally do.
you didn't get it either?
No,
So I don't know what's going on because it's not just it's not like my email kind of thing.
So basically no one got it. Besides,
Yeah.
I got it obviously because I was directly contacted from it. But let
And
me
I
I
see.
know it's because I went on the website and just pulled it down from the website.
Okay.
Well, I
Yeah,
tried to alert each of you, independent, but it's, as you can imagine, it's frustrating to have to, go through all this multiple times and ways just to, say, hey, we're doing this. Because my goal always is 100% participation.
You know what I
and-
wonder? So I just looked at the email that you sent, and you sent it to the town clerk, to Fair TV Commission, and then CC'd me and Jen. I'm wondering if, for some reason, if there's 2 people added to the 2 line, that it somehow doesn't. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. But I mean, maybe try just doing just you guys, the commission, to the 2, and then everyone else CC, or I mean, it shouldn't.
The problem really here, though, I mean, putting aside my own frustration and just sending, I mean, at this point, I'm just going to list your individual emails.
Yeah.
But and I think we should honestly, unless we're communicating with someone on the outside, if we're just communicating with each other, we just put people's emails down, because then
Yeah.
it's just going to be simpler and ensures visibility, right? But to instruct the public to add this, but only put it's just getting.
Should I?
ridiculous.
Do you think we should just leave it at the main Fair TV, because
Yeah.
that one works fine, and then anything I get, I'll just forward it to you guys individually, and then this way it's kind of one contact. There's no multiple emails get listed, and then I could also reply back from that email. So if you have any
Right.
responses or anything back to them, we don't have to worry about personal
Yeah,
emails
it
getting out again.
just is basically negating the point of setting up this alias, which I, had believed was better than it's performing. And at some point, we looked into Luke obviously creating yet another one. But before we go down that line, I'm like we talked about creating a Gmail, like literally a Gmail for Fair TV Commission. But I think this is just getting too complex. We're spending a lot of time on it, and all we're trying to do is ensure that the public can reach us, because I don't believe in the past that's been the case. So as long as you feel confident that you can check that fairly regularly, if you go on vacation, you're entitled to, tune out for whatever amount of time that is, but we'll just have to deal with that situation when it comes up. But this is getting ridiculous. And you know, we've already had a long chat with Dave Kelly, you and me. This is what he told us. And you know, maybe this is beyond his purview. I don't know, but it's just getting ridiculous to keep having the same problem where we can't even communicate with each other when we're trying to officially send, you know, correspondence like a meeting agenda.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Like I said, I monitor that, gets forwarded to my personal, so I'm checking that all day. So I mean, it's no big deal. If anything comes through, I'll immediately forward it to you guys and let you guys know.
Okay. I mean,
And I think the vacation thing might be on hold for a little bit with this kid, with our kid coming. I know Will can speak to that, right?
they need to take a baby moon because it ain't going to get any easier.
Mhm.
Says every pro parent on this call, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I mean, I think really the source of getting this email also is, you know, when we were going through a more turbulent time with, you know, shall we say, people writing with very strong opinions and, you know, blasting residents' emails on Facebook forums and all kinds of stuff. We were trying to maintain a, you know, a separation between obviously people having access, but I think just for purposes of time, we just move to this somewhat simpler, you know, format. I do think, Luke, it's okay. I mean, I don't mind replying to somebody to say, you know, we can't cover this, but we do have to draw usually a hard and fast line. But for purposes of this meeting, should we pivot before we get into your business, you know, to your standing report to the meeting that we did agree to cover? Is that tomorrow night?
Yeah. Tomorrow night is the
Take it away.
SantaCon community basic forum that Bill Gerber is going to be talking at, I guess, to address the issues at the December SantaCon. Jen, I think she reached out to us last week or so, asked us if we could cover it. I mean, obviously, like everyone knows in Fairfield that it's a hot topic, and especially when the first selectman, basically his first town hall. I mean, I know. I mean, I have no problem covering it. We kind of got all the resources together.
Did
Just
you get it moved to Ward?
yeah, everything's there now. So I did it ahead of time before the approval, just just to be safe and prepared in case we did approve it. So I'm ready to go if you guys approve it.
Does anyone have questions about this? I mean, obviously it came in under 30 days, you know, but I guess, right? I mean, that's the general rule of thumb, but if something, you know, we deem, you know, is obviously, you know, falls under our guidelines and purview like this, you know, and it doesn't require, you know, special resources, the thought is, and namely it's, you know, it's a town official, right? I mean, this is the first selectman. It seems like it was a practical consideration, but I'm open to hearing, you know, any view to the contrary, even though the boat had to kind of move on this one imminently.
I was just gonna say, like, I think the 30 days bit, like, it's less a hard and fast rule, right? It's more if you want to ensure that your thing can be considered, it has to be 30 days to allow for us to meet, right? Like that's we can't vote on it if you're which we experienced between our last meeting and this meeting. There was 3 or 4 events that people wanted covered, and we're not meeting. And if we have less than a week's notice, we owe a certain notice period to call a special meeting. So it's just not feasible. I think this is one where the timing happened to work out, even though it wasn't 30 days notice, right? So I don't think it should preclude us from covering it, as long as, again, most importantly, like, Luke has the resources and it doesn't interfere with the things that we're, mandated to cover. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think it's, it's something that is involving our first selectman. It is certainly of interest to everyone in the town. It doesn't feel partisan. It feels pretty kind of like town interest to me, particularly for residents down by the affected area. So,
Like Mr. Camlett.
So I have a question and a comment, or maybe it's both. So I was totally oblivious to the 30-day thing, and I don't know how I missed that. I didn't actually know about it till Will responded and said, to the one from one of the state legislators, we need 30 days. I was totally unaware of that. Is that written down someplace, or is that just a rule of thumb?
It, like I said, it's not even a rule of thumb or a rule at all. It's just for us to be able to vote on something, right? Like the general guidance being, if you give us 30 days, we have no excuse but to vote on it, right? Like we have to be able to vote on it if we're meeting. But if you come to us with a request for a week from now, if we're not meeting, we can't even call a special meeting to vote. So de facto, request denied, we can't do our due diligence.
Right. I mean, I'm not objecting. I just didn't, it
Yeah.
didn't occur to me whether 30, now I understand. That's where the 30 days come
Yeah.
from.
And it is on the
It-
website too, so it is public
Yeah.
knowledge, at least for people to see.
The problem though is that this is like writing, this is like the alias again. People don't go to the website, they just get our alias from Jen, or Jen herself, or Christine for example, would make the request of us. So all we can do is put stuff on the website. We can't control, people going there, but I think we're trying to encourage people to think far out and, if we don't have the resources to do something or to do something, within reasonable budget, that would possibly make us have to nix it, right? Based on that. So I think, as Will said, the goal is that the lead time not only enables us to sit here and consider it as a committee, which I think is always the ideal, but it also takes away the component where, we're running around with our heads cut off trying to cover things that may be important, but we just simply don't have time. I mean, Luke was very astute and immediately asked, consulted me, and the feeling we came up with was that if it wasn't moved to ward, we would quite likely have to say no, because the audio issues where it was proposed to be done, I don't remember where, were significant enough that it would be poor coverage.
Well, it totally makes sense to me. I just wasn't thinking it through that way. I mean, I have certainly no objection to it. It makes total sense. And I think problem is people think that we're like some local TV station that can run out the door with a camera and set it up and cover a meeting. And that's not what we are.
Exactly.
Well, that's why I like it on the website. And
Yeah,
I
it makes
think it's
total sense.
I think it's worth reinforcing to both Jen and, reinforcing might be a little strong, but worth mentioning to Jen and Christine, where requests would most likely come through them, to say, hey, we really need 30 days, right? So that's it. I mean, as Will says, we don't have to create an edict that, doesn't allow us to, bend, for the common good of town residents to have, transparent, just to be informed about government, meetings and decisions, town government meetings and decisions. But I think the key is, so I'll take it upon myself to tell Jen and Christine that we really do need 30 days, to carefully consider both, the feasibility of doing it and just making sure it's something that we deem worthy of coverage, because as we all know and don't have to discuss here, not every request can or should be covered. And in fact, many of them, as we know, like, these school plays that come in, we simply won't cover. And furthermore, don't want to, pick off one and then say no to the others. So.
And I think I would say when you do tell them, just make sure, I would say if you could ensure that it's the secondary content or stuff that's not regularly scheduled. So say like, because we have obviously times where, say, the Board of Selectmen got changed, instead of Monday, it's Wednesday, and obviously it's 30 days, but that's one of our regularly covered meetings. So that one, I feel like those we're expected to cover that. So unless it's a crazy location offsite and, a big setup, then it's no big deal. But for these, out at the schools, there's a whole big setup, and it's obviously not one of our main coverages,
I suspect that with this UI issue, there's going to be more last minute meetings. Hopefully last minute doesn't mean last minute, but less than 30 days notice. And, you know, this is what, and Luke, we'll get to this in a minute. You know, we have a budget, a sort of an allocation, you know, to tap into, but that obviously is a very important issue to a lot of people in this town. And, you know, we would be remiss to stand hard and fast on 30 days. And Lee, you know, we're just giving you background and context, so
Yeah,
we're
no, I appreciate
on
that.
the same page. Okay, let's move along. So just for, you know, proper order of business, I'm gonna make a motion before Luke, you do your standing report. You know, for the committee to vote on something that we largely, you know, moved ahead with, but just to make sure that, you know, we're taking all of our views into consideration, I'll make a motion to vote on the Fair TV coverage of the SantaCon meeting on Tuesday, January 23rd at Ward High School.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Sorry for taking that out of order, but certainly relevant in the scheme of communication and good transparency. So finally, we can move, Luke, to your report.
All right. Well, obviously, I was going to talk a little bit about the meetings coverage that we just talked about. As far as, I mean, the budget, that's a whole nother section after this. So I guess we'll wait till that gets touched on. But I hate to say it, but there's nothing new to report on the grant front or the Zoom room front. So that's the two kind of hotter topics that we've talked about in the past few meetings. And the Zoom room is kind of a standstill at the Board of Ed. And then the grants, I honestly don't think we're going to hear from the grants until February or so, because that's when they close the window. And then from there, then they start doing the payouts. So we might not hear from February or March. And then when I do, obviously I'll let you guys know. And then we could kind of, because that kind of ties into the budget as well. And I'll explain more when we get to that. But I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
So I told, maybe David, I mentioned that I had some thoughts about the Zoom rooms. Do you want to do that now or you want to wait?
Yeah, let's do it now.
Let's
do it now.
So I've been thinking about,
Lee,
all right,
sorry. Luke, can you either make sure when we get to the budget that you either share?
Yeah, I have. I'll share my screen. I have it up on my
Okay,
screen. So
Thank you.
I'll throw that
I'm
up.
sorry, Lee. Just want to be.
no. I'll be brief. Luke knows that I get emails from my neighbor all the time who watches. He must watch every video that we post and is always complaining about the audio rather. So I was thinking about the Zoom rooms, and this may be stepping outside of our bounds because I understand that FairTV had no involvement with the decision to build the rooms or to install the rooms or whatever. But the problem is that even though it was not our doing, we put these meetings online, and a lot of times the audio is just horrible, which is no fault of our own, it's the fault of the room. So I had two thoughts, which may be a longer discussion another time, but there are some simple things that could be done to correct it. One of which is to get whoever's running the meeting to announce, you need to talk loudly if you're going to be heard in this meeting, because otherwise the microphones won't pick it up. And we could put signs in the rooms where the microphones are, because when I was in the Board of Selectmen room, I couldn't figure out where the microphones are. Maybe they're just in the ceiling.
Yeah,
And maybe that's not,
they're like ceiling tiles. You wouldn't even notice them.
yeah, maybe that's not our responsibility. I'm just throwing it out there because I don't know whose responsibility it is.
I would say
then
it's probably Dave Kelly, and I could get back to him on that and see if they'll put up signs or whatever. But I could definitely mention if we have staffers hosting the meeting, just to kind of remind everyone at the beginning of each meeting just to speak up. So what is your name, neighbor's name, Richard?
Yeah,
Okay, so he's been reaching out to me a lot.
yeah, Machowski,
Yeah.
and he's not wrong. Some of those,
Well, yeah, so actually, so I asked for a few different timestamps as to where he heard it was choppy and whatnot. And the three examples that he gave me, the first one, seemed like it was due based on the network. It dropped off because the video quality dropped for a little bit, and then the audio got choppy at that time. And then once the video came back, like high quality, then the audio seemed to come back as well. So the first one, what I would say was due to the network. Maybe there was a bandwidth issue where it kind of dropped down for a minute, which caused the choppiness. And then the two other examples that I kind of looked into for him was I noticed both times where he said it got choppy was when there was shuffling of papers, and everyone was kind of, all three or four of the board members were kind of shuffling through papers and kind of trying to find a certain page or whatever it may be while there was a presenter talking, and then the audio kind of just got kind of bogged down and just totally kind of almost like it was the papers are trying to basically take over for the voice, and it was just going back and forth, and it obviously sounded choppy. But unfortunately, that when you have microphones like that up in the ceiling, and they're basically picking up more or less everything, even though they're able to be tuned. I mean, if you're making noise in the room, unfortunately, that's just how it's going to be. Like
that's where the mic wants to go.
Exactly. And like, you could, if someone's gonna be clapping super loud, it's gonna pick up that more over the voice that's talking, especially if the microphone's say 10 feet away from the person talking and the person clapping or shuffling the papers is right underneath the microphone. Cause that seems like every time that I noticed it got kind of poor audio, it was because someone was shuffling papers or, moving things around right underneath the microphones, because the microphones are basically right above where the board sits. And then when the presenter sits in the board of stands in the board of selectmen, they're kind of way off to the side, which I think, I mean, who knows, but that's the few things I've noticed when he pointed out those two or three timestamps. So again, that could just be a reminder, just, hey, if you're talking or someone's talking, don't move anything, don't move a muscle, more or less, because I mean, it is obviously a trial and error kind of thing with the Zoom room, because no one, people, they're used to the push to talk. So that's what they're used to, the push it, you talk. When you're not talking, nothing picks up. But with the new microphones, everything gets picked up more or less. And I mean, I'll mention it to Dave Kelly, because I mean, he could have the company come back, maybe fine tune it a little bit more. But unfortunately, I think we're kind of stuck with what we got for the mics, and they paid a lot of money for them. So,
Yeah.
You'd think you'd have better results from how much they spent on each of those.
Well, I think mentioning to Dave it can't hurt. It might improve it, but some of them are. He pointed me to one at the fire commission meeting that the sound was unintelligible for much of the meeting.
Yeah, so
they were in that room, they were spread out.
Yeah, so that's another thing too.
Got messed up.
Yeah, that's another thing too, is with the I noticed with the fire training station school, they definitely don't sit near the microphones, and they kind of spread out throughout the room. So that's probably worst case scenario, where they probably should be, even though the microphones are supposed to pick up the whole room. I mean, when you have 20 or 30 people in the room, and a lot of them are talking at once or whatever it may be, it just can't, it's not practical to have perfect voice, every single person talking, and if they're spread out and whatever it may be. So I think it will get better over time as people kind of learn the layouts and kind of set up their meetings based on the layouts of the microphones and where the table should be and whatnot. But unfortunately, there's not too much we can do. Like you said, this is all paid for by the town, set up by the town. We had no input basically on what vendor to use or whatever it may be. We're just basically taking the feed and we're kind of stuck because, I mean, there's really no way around it, because in order to get the cameras and the microphones, we have to use their feed,
Right.
and to bring in basically all new equipment and whatnot of our own. I mean, it would still be cumbersome and basically wouldn't work. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is nice that, like you said, we're able to cover a lot more meetings, because we're able to, have a lot of different rooms that are already set up, and there's basically WebEx goes, and then we're able to grab the feed and, produce broadcasts, definitely a few more meetings than we would normally, but we're definitely not getting the high quality mic that's right up next to them,
Yeah.
like we're used to, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyone else? Any other questions, or should we jump to the budget?
Has Dave left the building?
You could jump to the budget.
All right. Dave, I mean, if Dave's not there, I kind of talked to him a little bit about it when we met with, he was there with Bill and Frank when we kind of went over the initial budget. Not much has changed. So I'll share my screen now so I could show you guys. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
All right, so we have the full year 23, 24, that was last 2 years, and then full year or fiscal year, whatever, 25 is this year. Actually, you know what? I don't have, let me see. Actually, sorry, that was the older one. I added a few different things. All right, so can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I added in like the difference in changing in the costs and whatnot, so it's a little bit easier to understand. So basically, from last year, the manager's position went down 15 grand. The part-time archivist and the freelance labor, it's basically the top one is Paxton's more or less position, and then the freelance falls underneath the 2 or 3 others that we kind of use. I increased it 8 grand between the 2 of them because the expected change in meetings this year, especially because with the budget season and everything, there's a lot more meetings going on, and Jerry, he would attend a lot of these meetings. So I don't know. Again, I don't know. Me being new to here, I don't know exactly. I don't have a full year to forecast. I'm basically going off the last 6 months. So I think if I, kind of give the 8 grand would definitely cover us for those meetings that Jerry would have sat in, because I know like the budget, they do ones that are like 10 a.m. and they basically go all day. So that should definitely cover the resources for that. Web stream, that was something that Jerry had been paying for, which was basically not needed now that we set up the YouTube live stream. So that saves us 3,500. And then virtual desk, Jerry never told me what that was. I spoke with Frank. He tried to he didn't really know either. So basically I'm taking that out because I don't see a need for it, whatever it was. So that saves us 7 grand. And then this is the big one is the broadcast server. I did apply for the grant, like we said. but I just put this in here just to kind of cover us in case for some reason the grant doesn't come through. I'm pretty hopeful that it will come through, because from what I've heard that they're pretty good with covering it. But again, we need to replace this either way. So I think having that in definitely would be beneficial in case we lose the grant. And then $2,000 for additional software. There's a few different pieces of software that we've used this year. I think, it's crucial to our production. And then the $10,000 for the Zoom room support. I spoke with Frank a little bit last week or so, and it's basically what that is to cover us in case anything comes up with the new Zoom room. If there's any extra equipment that we need, or if there's extra labor that comes with, say, we need more, an additional guy running the Zoom room, or if there's additional meetings because of the Zoom room, or whatever it may be, any additional charges that come with the Zoom room and all the additional meetings, that kind of gives us a little bit of a cushion and protects us from basically running out of money in the end. It is up, if you see, from this year than last year, but if you take out the broadcast server, which we're hoping that it does come out with the grant, we could take that out before the final budget is presented, and then we'd still be actually lower than we were last year. So we'd be about, let's say, $5,000 less than last year if once that grant comes through and we get approved for it. So any questions or concerns or whatever, you guys, what are your thoughts?
I just have a question, which is, David, you met with the first selectman on the budget, is that right, or am I?
We've met, but nothing, we just we basically went over it with him.
I'm just wondering if the broadcast server is critical and you don't get the grant, will the town pick up the cost of the server?
So I talked to Frank about that, and he made it seem like they would be able to cover that if we put in the budget and it gets approved. And he said obviously he could, if you have any questions for him or whatever it may be, I could always, call him, or we could meet with him if he'd like. But from talking with him, it seems like they have no problem covering it. But like I said, I'm hoping that the grant covers it. I'm probably like 90% sure that they will. But again, this is my first time going through it, so I don't know. I can't say for certain how much they'll cover if they do. But from what I've heard, it sounds like it's almost guaranteed. So.
One point I'd like to raise, and I want to make sure Luke, you hit on it properly, is the manager fee, while it represents a decrease, you have 58,000 for FY23. Is that because there was some overlap with yours and Jerry's salary? That's
I'm not, so I know from the looking at invoices and whatnot of the past, it looks like Jerry was making 58,280, and then I think for the last year he must have got more money for his position, and then he ended up leaving anyway. So I think that actually never came out, because obviously I took over and then we adjusted it based on my hiring. So I think he was only making 58.
Yeah, I remember his proposed raise that was approved. But just for everybody's clarification, what this budget factors in, and it's not spelled out here, so I just want to make sure everyone realizes that. Luke, when you were hired, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 45, right?
Yeah.
So this incorporates a $5,000 raise for Luke, and obviously he's on the call, so this is something we can convene on later on in the call. But this is factored into twofold. Number one, he's done a lot more work, safe to say, than we had anticipated. We knew there'd be some sort of swing up, if you would, for him to get used to the job. But I think candidly, you've done a remarkable job.
Thank you.
Do a whole host of things. And, considering where we were, what our budget looks like, and everything else, I think this is a reasonable increment. Again, I know you're on the phone, but I think we can all just hear with us. But we can all, speak about it openly and candidly. Or as I said, we can reconvene, later on in the call. But this would incorporate a $5,000 raise, which again, still puts us under not only what Jerry was making, but still significantly under what he was proposing and was approved.
So a question about that, do we have to approve the raise for Luke as a separate line item?
I think, I mean, I don't know, you guys would have to know better, but I think that would come when it comes to my contract, I believe, right? Because I was, even though Jerry was approved for this budget, I think it didn't matter because I ended up basically going with a new contract, right? So I think come June, then we'd have to talk about a new contract and whatnot. But it still has to be in the budget to cover it, basically.
Right. So if the budget is approved in February, and Paul, I don't know if you recall, I think Will, this might have been right before you joined. I remember going through this process with Jerry where my recollection was that we voted on it. I don't know if that was a formality or if it's essential to do it. I don't really, I think, we could say in the broad scheme of things, if you disagree with it, then you could disapprove of the budget, right? As a whole, because if any one item you disagree with, in theory, that would throw the whole thing off, or maybe there's other offsets that make it acceptable to you. I'm open to either, but for formality purposes, we could certainly vote on it here and now.
Yeah, I just remember like specifically voting on the pay raise for Jerry. That's the only reason why I brought it up.
Let's do that because, in retrospect, this does require the issuance of a new contract. And I just want to be sure that from a formal perspective, there's no question that we are, endorsing this and considering it as obviously a line item, even though we don't have to do that on every one. We can go through questions on other things here. But let's make sure before we get off this entire budget discussion, I think we ought to bring it up for Luke's proposed raise for a vote. And I just want to clarify, the vote would be, we would be voting on you, Luke. So even though it says manager fee, in the event that, you are no longer the manager for whatever reason, we're not agreeing to that amount for somebody else. That's all. So maybe your name ought to be next to it. I don't know.
All right. You want me to add it next to it?
I don't see why not. The more thorough, better. But Lee, just moving to the broadcast server, do you feel that explanation suit you?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that if it's a critical piece of equipment, that if for some reason, and I think Luke's right, given what my conversations with him were, that, if for some reason they didn't get funding for the broadcast server, that the town wouldn't be caught unaware and would be able to back, pony up the money if the grant fell through.
Yeah, I think, like I said, after speaking with Frank on the phone, he made it sound like they would cover it if it's approved in the budget and it doesn't get picked up by the grant. But hopefully we won't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I know, like I said, I know in the past, I think he said that there's been stuff like that where it doesn't go fully and the town covers half, and I did have to submit a grant request form through Terry Brown. Basically says that we're applying for the grant, how much it is, basically, if the town is responsible for part of it with it on top of the grant or whatever it may be. So they are aware that we're basically waiting on the grant money in order to cover this. So
That's good for me.
Any other questions, Will, Paula?
No?
No, I'm all good.
So I'm going to make a motion then the first motion is a motion to vote on an increase in Luke Altieri salary as Fair TV manager for fiscal year 25. I make a motion to vote on the increase.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes unanimously, and then the second vote will be on increasing Luke Altieri salary as Fair TV manager from the current base of 45,000 to 50,000, representing a $5,000 increase, and still putting us significantly under both in dollar figures and percentage where we were a year plus ago. So that's the second vote. All in favor?
Second that.
So, sorry, are we voting on the overall budget? Is that what we're voting on here?
Well, I just made a motion to vote on Luke's increase now.
Okay.
This is a little bit of a sort of a slow walkway now. Now I'm actually raising the vote on increasing Luke's salary from 45 to 50.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That motion passes unanimously. And now the third and final one, this is, I think, really the most important one. And please, if anyone wants to discuss any of these items in more detail, now's the time to do it. So in absence of that, this vote is to certify Fair TV budget to be presented formally to the first selectman in the town of Fairfield and the budget director for their approval, as is here laid out.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so that motion passes unanimously. I have one more item of new business, but does anybody have any other items of new business? No? Okay. It just dawned on me this week, and it's, again, I don't know the protocol here, so I'm guessing that this is okay, but obviously we can, confirm it. That we had agreed for our meetings to be on Wednesday nights at 8:00. Even though tonight was yet another exception for me. I'm of the belief that it's easier to, convene this meeting on Mondays at 8:00. It looks like, one of us can obviously miss it and we can still have a quorum. The hope is that we'll have an additional member, in a week's time, or certainly for the next meeting, in which case 2 people can miss the meeting. But obviously our hope is that all 5 attend, whenever, however possible. So we could also table this until we have the luxury of having Suzanne on the phone, just to, sort of understand better about her needs if she is in fact approved by the RTM. I open it up to everybody here, even though I know this, but the discussion was already voted on and approved in the last meeting. The irony again is that it wasn't submitted. So I believe we can reconsider it and revote if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty important that Monday nights work for her. I don't know what your conversation was with her, Will, if you told her that we meet on Wednesdays and she was fine with that.
She seemed fairly flexible.
Okay.
Like I did tell her that we've been meeting in evenings. I do think there's, maybe at some point conversation on if we all can make daytimes work at some point, but that's probably one best kept until she gets here, and then we can start bridging schedules and seeing if there's a better time. But yeah,
So
you
then
seem
you
fine with it.
sorry, Will. So then you would need to call a special meeting for February 21st, which is a Wednesday, and then we'd vote on it, and then hypothetically, the Monday meeting would be March 18th. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still confused if that's a special or regular, because this was special. Even though, I guess just based on the vote or the continuing norm. But yeah, I mean, Wednesday, the 21st would be the next meeting as planned. And that one would be, I mean, just so everybody's aware, that's a vacation week. So just want to be sure that that still works for everybody, because we hope Suzanne, if elected, will be present, but we say it's better to assume, that she would not be, just for purposes of nailing down the date.
So Fairfield Public School has that week off?
Luke?
I think that they have Monday off and Friday.
Oh, no, they have. Go ahead, Luke. This is your.
Yeah, I know. I probably should know this, but let me look it up.
Like, the kids are different. The kids are different than the town. They don't have the full week off. I should know that. From.
They used to, but now they have a 4-day weekend. So the 16th and the 19th they have off. I'm pretty sure.
Let's see.
Yeah, Luke, do you want to just take a quick look at it?
Yeah.
I actually have to work
I
on
have,
that
it looks
tonight.
like February, 16th they're off, 19th they're off.
That's a Friday, Monday.
Yeah, Friday, Monday.
Do you foresee, Luke, any, in the big picture, do you foresee Monday nights being an issue with WebEx, or namely your attendance?
I don't think so. I think Monday nights work pretty well. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I'm not really going to all the meetings, so I mean, like there's an RTM meeting going on right now, and I'm able to make it, so it's not a big deal.
Just something important to consider, because we don't want to lose you for the meeting.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I should be able to.
Okay.
Should be able to make that.
So
No problem.
I guess just the question is it better, since we're sort of I feel like we're in no man's land here, and I may need to get clarification of this from Sue in the town clerk's office, but I'm not certain we have any obligations set in stone here for the next one. I think we can do what we want, because we're obviously more than a day out, right? So for the next one, should it be on the 19th or the 21st? Does anybody have a feeling one way or the other about it? Because again, at that meeting, we'll hopefully have the presence of our final number, and then we can chart a course for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I can't make the 19th.
I can't either.
Oh, well, that makes it really easy. Okay, but it's worthy, and Will, I don't know if you want to save this again till the next one, which I'm guessing is going to be on the 21st at 8 p.m. Are Lee, you and Paul available on the 21st?
Yeah, I'm fine. 21st
Okay.
works.
So, Will, do you want to bring this up? Yeah, I mean, you and I had talked about it. I think it poses some challenges, though it's a very interesting idea. If daytime is even an option for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big challenge with it will be if it's one of our, when the meetings are quicker and they're 30-minute, light agenda not tough stuff, daytime is probably more feasible. The problem is, we don't want people having to shut off at a 30-minute mark if we're, delayed 5 minutes starting or there's tech issues, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the more I think about it, the more challenging I think a daytime meeting will become to get full attendance from people.
So obviously, Luke is a major concern there.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I probably wouldn't be able to make anything before 5 o'clock
Yeah.
at night, just with the way my schedule is. And I mean, I get like a half hour for lunch, and it's like by the time I got no time to do anything. Just to be able to sit down and actually have a half-hour meeting, it'd be tough during the day.
Moot point then.
Sorry.
Mention as a discussion point. I don't think it's, we got it. It was very important when you took this job, we clarified that, you were not expected to, really take time out of your workday anyway. So we just were throwing it out there and wasn't sure about your break and all that. Okay.
Yeah, I only get a half hour. If I had an hour, I could probably swing it, but I only get a half hour.
But even if these do really fall as half hours, it's still, it's not practical because, as you said, there's often, it can be a technical issue or something, or, tonight I was running late. Again, my apologies. Okay, so the next meeting will be Wednesday, February 21st at 8 p.m. I'll let the town know that. So, that can be communicated to the RTM, or if this is approved, and most importantly, it can be communicated to Suzanne. But even if she was not able to make that meeting, for example, we just want to be practical about starting to move that around, because that's where people's things can become really difficult. And you gain one, you lose another, lose two. If there's no other business, I'll make a motion to conclude this meeting.
I'll second.
I think do we vote on, it's been a little while. Do we vote on that? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. That'll conclude the January 22nd meeting of the special meeting of the FairTV Commission. We'll reconvene on Wednesday, February 21st.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.